Hello, everybody. Welcome to Storytime from the Milledgeville Public Library of Illinois. The story we have for you today is from America, and it is a tall tale. That means it's a story that somebody made up about something that happened, and they told it to their kids, and their kids told it to their kids, and their kids told it to their kids, and on and on and on down. It's a story that's been passed down through generations of a family. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, maybe part of it's true, maybe part of it's not. Nobody really knows. It's a tall tale. So this is a tall tale about the invention of mashed potatoes. Back at the beginning of the 1900s, there was a war going on. Nowadays we call it World War I. Then they called it the Great War, or the War to End All Wars, because they really hoped that there wouldn't be another really big war after that. Well, this particular story happens during World War I, towards the end of the war, when the American Expeditionary Forces, led by General John Pershing, who was known to a lot of his friends as Jack, was traveling along through France, headed for Germany. By this point, they were out of the trenches and they were chasing the Germans back to Germany. Well, the problem is, when you have all these German soldiers tramping down a muddy road in the spring, and then all these American and British soldiers tramping down a muddy road in the spring, the road tends to turn into something very similar to quicksand. It's very sticky mud, and it sticks to everything, and it slows everything down. Now, people and horses can get through it okay, but wagons and trucks and cars, especially the trucks and cars from way back then, because those were the really early trucks and cars, the ones that couldn't go very well in sticky weather. Well, they were getting stuck. The wagons and the trucks and the cars. The problem is, that's what all the supplies were traveling in. So the soldiers didn't have a whole lot of food to eat, just whatever they could carry on their backs and whatever the cooks could buy from the local people. Unfortunately, the war had been going on for quite a while at this point, and there wasn't a whole lot of food to be had. So the army had been marching on, well, very small rations, a lot of potatoes and a lot of bread, and a little bit of meat here and there, and a piece of cheese maybe here and there, and that was about it. Well, this particular day, General Pershing was worried. You see, his cooks had just come to him and told him that the only thing they had left to feed the men was potatoes. And General Pershing knew that the men were tired of potatoes. They had gotten potatoes boiled, potatoes fried, potatoes baked. They were getting tired of them. And General Pershing was afraid that if he fed the men the same old thing of just plain potatoes again, they were going to start deserting. They were going to start leaving the army and going away, and then he wouldn't have any soldiers to fight with. So he was walking along the banks of the river near where the army was camped, trying to figure out what he could do to get his men more food, or to make the food different so that they wouldn't be upset that they were just getting potatoes for dinner tonight. He knew there was more supplies coming, but it took a while to get those wagons and those trucks and those cars through the mud. So as General Pershing was wandering alongside the river, trying to figure out what he was gonna do, his friend Bob Slough showed up. Now, Bob was not a soldier. Bob had come along because Bob was a really good friend of General Pershing's, and he wanted to help out General Pershing however he could. He couldn't fight. He wasn't able to fight, but he was able to help out General Pershing. He could be his friend. He could be somebody he could talk to. And Bob had one other thing he was really good at. He was really good at convincing people to give him things or to do things for him that they didn't really want to do in the beginning. So he was really good at talking to a farmer and talking him into giving the army some cheese. or into selling the army a cow so they could slaughter the cow and have a little bit of meat for the men. He was really good at that. And so General Pershing had brought him along. Well, as General Pershing was walking by the river, Bob Slough walked up and he said, "Hey, Jack, you look worried. What's wrong?" And General Pershing said, "Well, Bob, see, the cooks just came and they told me that all we have to feed the men tonight is potatoes." And Bob groaned because he was tired of potatoes too. I mean, the general and the other staff members weren't eating any better than the men. There wasn't anything but potatoes to feed anybody. Well, Bob said, "Well, Jack, that's a problem, because the men aren't going to like that." And General Pershing said, "I know, and I've been trying to think of something I can do, and I can't think of something to do." And Bob said, "Well, Jack, now let me think about it for a while, and I'll get back to you. You go do your general stuff, and I'll think about this problem of supper. I think I can come up with something." And so General Pershing said, "Oh, well, all right, Bob," and he went off to do his general stuff, and Bob was walking by the side of the river. He was thinking real hard. What could he do to do something? Either he had to get different kind of food, but that wasn't really going to be possible because there wasn't any more food nearby. They'd already had it all. He had to do something with those potatoes to make it so that the men would not be so upset. Oh, and then he thought of something. And so he went and he found General Pershing and he said, "Jack, I think I have a solution, but it's going to take a lot of manpower to make it happen. I'm going to need a lot of help." And General Pershing said, "Well, Bob, whatever you need, whoever you need, whatever you need, you just tell me and I'll get it for you." He said, "Well, I tell you, Jack, I need the cooks to prepare those potatoes, peel them up and clean them off and just get them ready. And then I need the infantry. And when I'm done with the infantry, I'm going to need the cavalry. And when I'm done with the cavalry, I'm going to need the artillery." General Pershing said, "Well, all right, we're not going anywhere today, so the men are at your disposal. You just do whatever you need to do, Bob." Okay. So Bob went out and he went to the cooks and he said, "All right, I want you to wash up all the potatoes real good, peel them up, do whatever you got to get them ready to cook, but don't cut them up, leave them whole." All right, so the cooks got to work. And he said, "Oh, and by the way, get ready to do some cooking." They said, "All right then." So then Bob went out and he got the infantry guys together and he said, "Gentlemen, I know you don't like to do this, but we got a good reason for this. We got something real special for you for supper tonight. I need you to dig a trench." And the men groaned a bit because they were tired of digging trenches. But Bob seemed to have something up his sleeve and he was pretty good at coming up with interesting things to do. So they went out and they dug him a trench right alongside the river. Big, deep trench. Dug the trench for him. They said, "All right, Mr. Slough, we got the trench all dug. What you want us to do with it?" And he said, "All right, now, I just want you guys to stand by for a minute." And he called all the cavalry guys and he said, "All right, guys, come on over here. I need your help. And more importantly, I need your horses. So I want you to go off there in the woods over there. And I want you to find as many dead trees and big branches as you can. Like anything that you think will burn. Bring it back here. Haul it back here. Use your horses. Carry it on your backs. Whatever you got to do, bring it back." So they went into the woods and there'd been a lot of fighting. So there was a lot of dead trees. And they pulled up all them dead trees and they brought them over and they stuck them in the bottom of the trench. And then Bob said, "All right, gentlemen, light it on fire." Now, they were pretty good at that. They liked playing with fire. So they lit that thing on fire and they had a huge bonfire going in there. And Bob said, "Now, cooks, come on over here, bring them potatoes over here and get ready." And they said, "Well, all right." And he said, line them up here alongside the trench and just get ready." They said, "Well, all right then, Mr. Slough, we'll do that." And then he got the infantry guys to dig a hole in one side of the trench into the river, so that all the river water went rushing into the trench and sat in the trench. And there was such a big fire in the trench that all that river water started to boil right away. And Bob said, "Quick, throw the potatoes in." And they threw all the potatoes in, and you know, like that, they were all boiled. They were all soft. And so they closed off the trench again, and they opened up the other end, and they let all the water run out. But they were real careful not to lose any of them potatoes. And then they got down in the trench, and they picked up all the potatoes from the bottom of that trench, cleaned them all up. And then Bob said, now, you infantry guys, you're done for the day. Have fun, go relax. You cavalry guys, you're done for the day. Have fun, go relax. Hey, artillery, you're up. So the artillery guys pulled up all their cannons, and they lined them up alongside one end of the field, pointing at the stone wall on the other end of the field. And Bob says, all right, now, cooks, I want you to load the cannon with the potatoes. And so the artillery guys put in the gunpowder, and then they poured barrels of potatoes into these cannons. And Bob says, all right, now clear the line. Fire! And they all fired their cannons, and the potatoes went flying out of the cannons and splattered on the stone wall on the other side. And he said, all right, cooks, get over there, scrape off them taters. So they went over and they scraped off all the smashed up potatoes. And then they loaded the cannons again, and they fired the cannons again, and they scraped off all those smashed up potatoes. I'm telling you, they were having a blast. It was so much fun to have target practice with potatoes. They exploded on the other end. It was really cool to watch. Well, when all the potatoes were done, Bob says, all right, you artillery guys, clean out your cannons, and then you're done for the day. Go take a rest. And he got together with all the cooks, and they went back to the cooking area, and he said, all right, guys, what else do we have? Do we have anything else we can put in these potatoes? They said, well, we've got some butter, sir, and a little bit of milk, and some salt and some pepper. And he said, well, all righty then. You take that and just mix it all up in those potatoes, mix it up real good, and then serve that out to the men, and we'll see what they think of this. And when supper time came, everybody lined up, and they all got a big old bowl of these, well, potatoes or something, but they sure didn't look like potatoes, not any potatoes they'd ever seen. So everybody sat down and started eating these potatoes, and they found they were really good. They really liked them. They were so tasty. Somebody up at the officer's table says, well, General Pershing, man, this is really good. What do you call this stuff? And General Pershing said, well, I don't know, Bob. You invented it. What do you call it? And Bob Slough says, well, I call it smashed potatoes. Now, see, the thing is, the artillery guys were sitting nearby, and one of them was listening because he wanted to know what to call this delicious thing. He wanted to make some of this at his own house, probably not with the cannons and stuff, but he figured he could figure out how to make it at his own house when he got home and share it with his family. And he was listening real good to see what the name of this food was. But when you work on the artillery and you're firing the big cannons all day, they're really loud. And so he was a little bit deaf. So he didn't hear smashed potatoes. What he heard was mashed potatoes. And so he passed the word on down the table, and pretty soon everybody in the camp was calling them mashed potatoes. And when they went home, they took that recipe with them, and they all learned how to make it at home, and they shared it with all their friends. And that, folks, is the story of how my great-grandfather, Bob Slough, invented mashed potatoes. I hope you enjoyed our tall tale for today. I hope you'll come back and join us again next week on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central Time. We will have a story for you again here from the Milledgeville Public Library of Illinois. Bye, everybody.